There is something I realized when I turned 80. I wish I had understood it sooner. I'm Ronald. I'm 80 years old. And for most of my life, I believed in something that wasn't true. Time to fix things. Time to become who I wanted to be. Time to say what really mattered. But one day, I looked back and realized I had been waiting for a moment that never came.
There is something I realized when I turned 80. I wish I had understood it sooner. I'm Ronald. I'm 80 years old, and I spent most of my life believing in something that turned out to be completely false. I believed I had time, not just time to finish projects or pay off the mortgage. I believed I had time to become the person I always meant to be. Time to have the conversations that mattered. Time to fix the things I'd let break. Last month, I was cleaning out my desk drawer when I found something that stopped me cold. A letter I'd written to my son David 20 years ago but never sent. It wasn't an angry letter or a dramatic confession. It was just honest. About things I'd wanted to tell him. Mistakes I'd made as a father, questions I'd wanted to ask about his life. I remember writing it clearly. I'd had an argument with David over something trivial, and afterward, I sat down to put my real thoughts on paper. But then I told myself I'd find a better time to give it to him. A time when we weren't both defensive. A time when the words would land better. That better time never came. The hard part was realizing that 20 years had passed, and I'd been waiting for the perfect moment to be honest with my own son. 20 years of birthdays, holidays, phone calls, and visits where I chose safe conversations over real ones. David's 52 now, a good man with his own family, his own struggles. We have a pleasant relationship. We talk about work, weather, his kids' activities, surface things that don't risk uncomfortable silence or difficult emotions. But I never gave him that letter, and now when I read it, some of the things I wanted to say don't even apply anymore. The moment for certain conversations has simply passed. This wasn't the only thing I'd been saving for later. For 37 years at the insurance company, I told myself I was building towards something. Not just retirement, but a version of myself that would have time for the things I really cared about. I loved music when I was younger, played guitar, wrote songs that probably weren't very good but felt important to me. After college, after marriage, after the kids came, the guitar went into the closet. I told myself I'd get back to it when life settled down, when the kids were older, when work wasn't so demanding, when I had space to really focus. Because life never settled down in the way I expected. It just changed from one type of busy to another. The kids grew up, but then there were their college expenses. Work became less demanding, but then there were my aging parents to care for. Each phase of life brought new responsibilities, new reasons why this wasn't the right time to pick up the guitar. New reasons why I should wait just a little longer to become who I really wanted to be. When I finally retired at 65, I went to the closet to get the guitar. The strings had long since snapped. The wood had warped slightly from years of temperature changes. It was still playable, but my fingers had forgotten how to find the chords. I tried to relearn what I'd once known, but muscle memory fades, and starting over at 65 felt different than it would have at 45 or even 55. Not impossible, but heavier somehow. More importantly, the songs I'd wanted to write, the musical ideas that had felt urgent when I was younger, they didn't feel urgent anymore. Time had changed not just my ability, but my relationship to the thing I'd been saving. This pattern wasn't unique to music. I'd always wanted to travel with Eleanor. Not expensive trips or exotic destinations. Simple things. A long drive through New England in the fall. A week at a cabin by a lake. Time away from familiar routines where we could talk without distraction. But travel required planning, time off work, money we could justify spending on something that felt optional when there were always more practical needs. We'd look at travel brochures occasionally, talk about places we'd like to visit someday. We'd even start planning trips and then postpone them when something more urgent came up. Eleanor was always more practical than I was about these things. She'd say we needed to fix the roof first, or save for David's wedding, or wait until my work schedule calmed down. She was right, of course. There were always practical considerations. But what I didn't understand then was that practical considerations never end. There's always something more urgent than the things that matter to you personally. By the time our finances were stable enough for travel, by the time I had enough vacation days saved up, by the time all the urgent things were handled, Eleanor's health had started declining. We managed a few short trips in our early 70s, but they weren't the leisurely explorations we'd imagined. They were careful, planned around her medications and my energy levels, focused more on not overexerting ourselves than on discovering new places. Still meaningful, but different from what we'd pictured during all those years of talking about someday. The hardest part wasn't the missed trips or the guitar gathering dust. The hardest part was recognizing the pattern. How often I'd traded present possibility for future potential. I'd lived as if time was a savings account I could draw from later, as if the person I wanted to be, the conversations I wanted to have, the experiences I wanted to collect were all guaranteed to be available when I got around to them. But time doesn't work like a savings account. You can't accumulate it and spend it later. You can only spend it as it comes, moment by moment, day by day. When Eleanor was in her final months, too weak for much conversation, I'd sit beside her bed and think about all the things we'd never talked about. Not big things necessarily, small curiosities, random thoughts, observations about life that had occurred to me but seemed too minor to interrupt our busy days with. I realized we'd spent 40 years living parallel to each other, managing the logistics of shared life, but we'd rarely stopped to explore what it felt like to be inside our individual experiences. I don't mean we didn't love each other or that our marriage was distant. We were good companions, reliable partners, but we'd gotten so focused on doing life together that we'd forgotten to simply be together. After she died, I found myself with something I'd spent decades saying I needed: unlimited time. No schedule to coordinate with, no one else's needs to consider. Complete freedom to structure my days however I wanted, and I discovered something surprising. Having unlimited time felt nothing like I'd imagined it would. Without the framework of shared obligations, without someone else's schedule to work around, time became shapeless. Days blended together. I could do anything I wanted, which somehow made it harder to want anything specific. I picked up the guitar again, but playing alone in a quiet house felt different than it would have in a house full of family life. The music had no context, no one to share it with. I started that letter to David again, but 20 years later, some of what I'd wanted to say felt outdated. He'd grown into his own understanding of things. The father-son dynamic I'd wanted to address had evolved into something else entirely. This is when I began to understand my fundamental mistake about time. I thought time was waiting for me to be ready. I thought it would pause while I handled more urgent matters and then resume when I had space for what really mattered. But time doesn't wait for readiness. It doesn't distinguish between urgent matters and important ones. It moves at the same pace, regardless of whether we're paying attention or not. More importantly, the person I'd been saving my authentic self for was changing too. The most painful realization wasn't about missed opportunities. It was about missed presence. I'd been present for thousands of dinners while thinking about work problems. Present for hundreds of conversations while planning what I'd say next instead of listening to what was being said. Present for countless quiet moments that I'd filled with mental noise about tomorrow's obligations. I'd treated presence like something I could schedule for later, after I'd taken care of everything else. But presence isn't something you schedule. It's something you choose again and again in small moments throughout ordinary days. My grandson Michael called last week. He's 25, just started his first real job. He was excited, talking about his plans, his goals, all the things he wants to accomplish over the next decade. I listened, and I realized I was watching myself 30 years ago. These days, I try to practice something I wish I'd understood decades ago. Instead of asking, "Do I have time for this?" I ask, "Is this worth my time right now?" Instead of waiting for the perfect moment to call David, I call him when I think of him. Instead of postponing difficult conversations until conditions are ideal, I have them when they arise, even if the timing feels awkward. I'm not trying to make up for lost time. I'm trying to stop losing time to the illusion that a better moment for authentic living is always just around the corner. When I see young people now, busy with their careers, their plans, their urgent obligations, I recognize the same mistake I made for decades. But this is it. This conversation, this decision, this ordinary Tuesday afternoon, this is the life they're preparing to live later. I thought I had time to be present after I'd finished being productive. But there is no later version of yourself waiting to live your real life. I'm 80 years old. I don't have time to wait for better conditions anymore. This limitation has turned out to be a gift. That letter to David, I finally gave it to him last month. He read it and called me the same day. The conversation was worth having 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and it was still worth having now. I picked up the guitar last week. I'm trying to be present for who I am now. Your real life is happening now. I thought I had time. I was wrong about everything except this. It's still not too late to stop waiting.